بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Okay, so today inshallah باب المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله. So where we are right now, we're studying المرفوعات من الأسماء, the nouns that are given the status of rafa' in a sentence. And we talked, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the different types that they have. So we said that there is a fa'il, the subject in a verb-based sentence. We said نائب الفاعل or المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله. Talked about مبتدأ and خبر. I talked about a number of different types of nouns that are marfu'. So, but we talked about them in a general manner. Today we're going to we're talking about them in more detail now. So today is المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله. So what is that in English? So المفعول means object. So it's the object in a verb-based sentence. So we're back to the same concept, verb-based sentence. That doesn't have a subject. So the subject has been conceptually removed from the sentence, and because we've removed the subject from the sentence, now the object is going to take its place, is going to be marfu'. Again, remind yourself that when I say المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله, the object in a verb-based sentence that doesn't have a subject, or the subject is not being named, this is a marfu'. This is a noun that is in the state of rafa'. Marfu' or the state of rafa' means that we are either a main character, when we say marfu', we're talking about a main character in a sentence that has not been tainted, has not been touched. So when we say something that is marfu', then what that means, what this means an unchanged or untainted main character in a sentence. So that's what marfu' means, right? So we studied the fa'il, the subject in a verb-based sentence, is the first marfu' noun. The second marfu' noun is the object in a verb-based sentence that doesn't have a subject. The subject has been conceptually removed within the sentence. What do I mean by conceptually removed? It's also called in Arabic, they also give it a name. The Imam Alajurroomiyyah calls it المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله. They also call it نائب الفاعل, the co-subject or the substitute of the subject in a verb-based sentence. So we talked a bit about how to kind of make them exist. How would you make a na'ib fa'al exist? What would you do to the verb? So so أكل
or
أحمد الطعام. Okay, so أكل is a verb, right? So it's a verb-based sentence. A verb-based sentence is going to need a subject, right? Who's the subject? Who did the eating? It's marfu'. The dhamma is the marker of rafa', right? So أحمد. أحمد is the marker of rafa'. And الطعام is called a maf'ul bihi. Right? So this guy over here, this is the fa'il, this is a subject in a verb-based sentence. Here, this is the subject. Well, over here is the object. It's called maf'ul bihi or maf'ul. So al-maf'ul, this guy can turn into a, and you can see he's mansub. It's mansub, it has a fatha on it, he's not marfu'. So you can turn this guy into the substitute of a subject, or a na'ib fa'il, or maf'ul alladhi lam yusamma fa'iluhu, or an object in a verb-based sentence that doesn't have a subject. We can take out the subject conceptually from the sentence. How can we do that? There you go. So that's exactly what I was hoping you would finally say that. So that's how you do it. So you get rid of this guy altogether by changing this verb. You change the way this verb is pronounced or the way it exists, and it becomes a passive verb. So this is a direct verb. We turn it into its passive form. Passive verb. It turns into ukila. Right? So this is the example that you'll find that, so ukila. So akala is how you say, but ukila. Now this guy is gone, and ukila at-ta'am. What does that transfer into English? Translate into English. Here is Ahmed ate the food. Here is the food was eaten. And the food was eaten. So in Arabic, at-ta'am now becomes the maf'ul alladhi lam yusamma fa'iluhu. Becomes the object in a verb-based sentence that doesn't have a subject. Because when I say the word verb-based sentence, there has to be a subject. There has to be a subject. But you're like, well, the subject is taken out. Yeah, well, someone will fill in. The next word will fill in for the subject. But we have to have a subject or something similar to it, and it has to be marfu'a. So ukila at-ta'amu. You see, it went from being marfu'a, mansub to being marfu'a. So the moment you say verb-based sentence, there has to be a subject. If it's not the actual subject, it will be the alternative or the substitute or a noun that will fill in for the subject. It will be also marfu'a. It will always be marfu'a. What are the markers of rafa' in for a noun? I'll put the cheat sheet up again one more time. Yeah. So the markers, because we're studying nouns that are marfu', right? So the markers of rafa' for nouns. So dhamma. What else? Wow, very good. What else? Alif. Right? Who is the alif for? Dual form. Very good. So dual form for the alif. You're catching on. Wow, what do we have? We have the sound. Masculine plural. And then we have the 5 exceptional nouns that you mentioned. Dhu, fu. Abu, akhu, hamu, dhu, fu, right? Abu, akhu, hamu, dhu, fu. And then you have the singular noun, broken plural, sound, feminine plural, right? So these are the. So when we see a noun, these are the expression of rafa', the marker of rafa' is going to be given by one of these 3 things. There's going to be a dhamma and a waw or an alif. There's really no other choice for a noun, right? So when we talk about na'ib al-fa'il, the substitute for the subject, or the subject substitute, or the object in a verb-based sentence that doesn't have a subject. So if you look at the definition to make sure you're clear on it, it's an object. It's a verb-based sentence. It doesn't have a subject. The subject is being removed. Akala Ahmed al-ta'am, we're taking Ahmed out. Ahmed is no longer a part of the equation. Why? Because we don't care who ate. What we do care about is that the food was eaten. So it shifts the focus from a conceptual perspective, from a linguistic perspective. When it says, I'll give you. So
if you add bi Ahmed, what would that bi Ahmed become?
Sorry?
Bi Ahmed. Ukila at-ta'amu bi Ahmed.
Not bi Ahmed. Bi Ahmed is by with Ahmed. So it's like he was used to do it. Like someone took him and no. So min qibali Ahmed. So you say min qibali Ahmed. So you say your question could be, what's the difference between these 2 sentences now? Between akala Ahmed al-ta'am, ukila at-ta'am min qibali Ahmed. What would the difference be? Well, the difference is huge. Here the focus is on what Ahmed did. Here the focus is that the food isn't there anymore. It's been eaten. It's less important who ate it. That's not the point. So when you change around the words in Arabic sentence, you change the emphasis from one thing to the other, or the emphasis here could be Ahmed, meaning the fa'il. We're emphasizing, that's why we removed him and put him at the end of the sentence so that we can emphasize him. Here there's no emphasis really, because it's a normal sentence. You're just stating a story. You're not emphasizing anything. You're not focusing more on who did it. You're not focusing more on the action or on the object. You're just telling the story as normally as possible. Whenever you change things around, whenever you cause, then what happens is that you end up emphasizing something, or de-emphasizing something, or make something less important. Okay. So نائب الفاعل or المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله it's just a fill-in for the subject. So it's like we're studying the subject, but we're saying the subject is taking a leave of absence, and we need someone to fill in for him. Because every verb-based sentence has to have a subject, and the subject will always be marfu'. We have to have a subject. There's no way. So even if the verb is being built in a way that a subject is not needed, we're still going to find someone to fill in for him. He's more important than the object. So you will not have a sentence without a subject. We just won't call him a subject anymore. We'll call him نائب الفاعل, the subject of a subject, or المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله. No difference. And they're going to be marfu' in the same way. So what examples can we come up with? Last time I asked you guys for examples for the fa'il. We didn't do very well in examples for the fa'il. Let's see what we can do today for na'ib al-fa'il. Give me an example. What can you do? Okay, we did. Alright, so I'll give a few examples inshallah. So, it's for the kids. So, rakala. What's your name? The guy who wasn't happy about the, what's your name? What's your name? Ayyub, okay. Rakala Ayyub al-Kura. So Ayyub kicked the ball. You play soccer? Yeah, so you kicked the ball, huh? Rakala Ayyubu al-Kurata. It's a verb-based sentence, right? It's going to need a subject. The subject is the guy who did the kicking. The kicking was done by Ayyub, so he's marfu'. He's a singular noun, so he's going to have a dhamma on it, right? And then the thing that was kicked, the object is al-kura, is the ball. It's going to be maf'ul bi, it's going to be mansub, it's going to be different. Now, I don't want to talk about who, let's say I come in, and I said before I left that this ball is going to be left here, no one touch it. I come in, I found the ball is no longer in its place anymore. So I'm going to make a statement. I don't know who kicked it, so I'm going to say the ball was kicked. I told you guys not to touch the ball. I'll say that in English. I'll say the ball was kicked, ya shabab. And I said not to touch it. So in Arabic, I would express that by saying rukilat al-kura. I would say rukilat. So rakala went to rukilat. And then I removed Ayyub because I don't know that he did it. And then al-kura. So it's a verb-based sentence, but it's a passive verb. It's a passive verb. It's not a direct verb. So now I don't know who did it. I know it was done. Right? So now this guy becomes the substitute or the fill-in for the subject. He's called na'ib al-fa'il or maf'ul alladhi lam yusamma fa'iluhu. He used to be the object, but because we removed the subject from a conceptual perspective, now he is going to be the fill-in for the subject. He's going to be marfu' as well, so he's going to get a dhamma. So rukilat al-kuratu. Very good. That's a good example.
Is it the same as active passive in English?
So what active passive, what is that in English? Tell me what that is.
So active is basically you're focusing on the subject is doing something.
Yeah, and the passive is the opposite. Yeah, so I say direct and passive. Active and passive is the same. So active and passive is probably the better way. I'm not very good at English grammar, to be honest. So yeah, you're probably, that's probably more precise in terms of the English grammar. So active or direct and then passive. So what we're studying, this only exists. Yeah. So I'm going to add something to the definition here. This object in a verb-based sentence that doesn't have a subject, right? So it's an object, to modify that, it's the object in a passive verb-based sentence. All right, so that's even a better way to define the na'ib al-fa'il. So he's the object. It's a verb-based sentence, but it's a passive verb-based sentence. It's not a direct or it's not an active verb-based sentence. The fa'il, the actual subject, needs an active or a direct verb-based sentence. So the example you gave me. So we'll say this. We'll say غفر Allahu dhunub. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives sins, or forgives the sins. Right? So this is how it works from a tashkil غفر Allahu, he's the subject here, so he's going to be marfu'. The marfu', it's a singular noun, so the marker of rafa is going to be a dhamma, right? And then dhunub is the object, is going to be mansub, dhunuba. Now if I want to focus on if I want to say the sins were forgiven, I want to focus on the sins being forgiven, I don't want to call out who actually forgave it. then what I would do is, to remove this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name from the sentence, you would say غُفِرَ, because this is feminine as a plural, الذُّنُوب. So the sins were forgiven. Now it's a verb-based sentence, just like the first one. It needs a subject. You're like, well, it's a passive verb. Passive verbs don't have subjects, they have fill-in for subject. They have a substitute subject. It's called نائب الفاعل والمفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله. So now the object is going to fill in for the subject, and he's going to become marfu'. He used to be mansub, he was bumped up he was given a raise. Now he becomes more important. And that is exactly what a passive sentence does. It gives importance to the object, philosophically and grammatically. Meaning now, at the beginning, in this sentence, he's the secondary character, right? So this is the main character. The fa'il is a main character. And here's a secondary character. So I want to make sins the main character. I want to make them more important. I want to make the concept of their forgiveness more important. I want you to focus on that rather than focusing on anything else. So when we focus on sin, what we do is we remove the subject conceptually by making the verb passive. So it turns into غُفِرَتِ الذُّنُوب. And now this guy's been bumped up. He's become a main character. Now he gets a dhamma. Now he's marfu'a. غُفِرَتِ الذُّنُوب. Alright? So if you want a simple definition of what نائب الفاعل is, or المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله is, you say it's an object in a passive verb-based sentence. An object in a passive verb-based sentence. Passivity being the key word in understanding this. So I'll give you an example. So خلق الله السماوات والأرض, right? So it's a verb-based sentence. خلق is an active or direct verb. It's going to need a subject 100%. Who did the creation? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he's marfu', it's a singular noun. The marker of rafa is going to be dhamma, right? And then the objects are the cosmos, the skies, the heavens, and the earth. And they're mansub, so samawati wal arda, right? So the sound feminine plural, the marker of nasb for it is a kasra, it's not a fatha. Now what I want to do is, I want to emphasize the fact that the heavens or the cosmos and the earth were created. I don't want to talk about who created, I just want to focus on the fact that they were created. So from a grammatic perspective, what I do is I remove, conceptually I remove the subject. I remove him. How I remove the subject is I turn this guy from active to passive. I turn him into a passive verb. When you turn him into a passive verb, it goes from khalaqa to khuliqat. Yep, khuliqat. So khalaqa turns into khuliqa. Right? So it's a passive verb now. It's still a verb-based sentence. And you still get to say, well, it has to have a subject. Yes, it has to have a subject. However, the subject has been removed. We're going to have someone fill in for the subject. Who's going to fill in for the subject? We bump up the object. Okay, now you're in play. Now you weren't the captain before. The captain's out. Now you're in. You have to be the captain for the day, and you get treated like the captain as well. So you used to be mansub. You're not going to be mansub anymore. Now you're going to be treated with royalty. You're going to be marfu'a. خلقت السماوات والأرض.
When would it be plural for the verb? Why isn't it like khalaqa? Like,
yeah, it's always going to be like that if you don't.
It's singular, right?
Yeah, it'll always be even if the first of all, singularity and plurality will follow the subject. Not the alternative, not the substitute of the subject. It'll always have the subject himself, right?
But if you don't know.
Even if you don't know. Because even if he was plural, even if here it was people who did it, you still wouldn't change that. You would still stay in the singular form. I'll give you an example. Okay. Hold on. All right. Yeah, so I'll give you an example. So let's say, just to make, because you only change the status of the verb if you already know who the subject was, or the subjects were talked about before. So it's usually a noun-based sentence, meaning you've already established who the guy who did it was, or the people who did it before. But if you don't know, then you don't change it. You don't touch. You keep the verb as it is. So ذهب. Now ذهب is not a good one because we don't have a. You need one that has an object in it. قرأ. الطلاب الكتاب or القرآن whatever.
كتب. How about كتب?
اوكي الكتب حاضر يلا.
It's plural.
Okay خلاص. قرأ الطلاب الكتب. So here's a verb-based sentence, right? It's an active one. قرأ is an active one. So it's going to have a subject and a verb-based sentence, a فاعل. The فاعل is going to be مرفوع. Who did the reading is the طلاب. It's a broken plural. So the marker of رفع is going to be a ضمة. So قرأ الطلاب. And then الكتب is the object is منصوب because it's a فتحة. قرأ الطلاب الكتب. Now I don't want to focus on who did the reading. I don't care who did the reading. What I care about is that the books were read. That's what I care about. So I want to emphasize that in a sentence. So I turned the sentence from an active or direct based verb sentence into a passive verb sentence. So I remove students and I say قرئ. So I say قرئت because the ta is for ta'need, it's for feminism because it's a feminine word. So قرئت. So I changed it from قرأ to قرئت. It's still a verb-based sentence. I still need a subject. You have to ask for the subject. But here I tell you, it's not the subject. It's a fill-in for the subject. The subject is gone. We're going to fill in. We're going to bump up the object. So what we're doing is really giving emphasis of the object. We're making it more important. Mansub. Words that are mansub. What are they? What are they? What are words that are mansub? Marfu' is an unchanged main character in a sentence. That's what a marfu' is. That's the most important thing you can be in the world of grammar. If you're in the world of grammar, if you're a marfu', you're the best you can be. You're the unchanged main character of a sentence. No one touched you. Mansub is either you're a secondary character or you're a tainted, changed main character. Like you're a main character that something came and affected from the outside, right? So here is a secondary character. We're going to bump him up to being marfu', which is to make him an unchanged main character. We're giving him higher status. We're bumping him up a bit, right? So it turns to قرئت الكتب. الكتب. He's marfu' now. So قرئت الكتب. Right? So it doesn't matter. Pluralism doesn't affect the verb because even if the subject is a group.
So verb-based sentences always start with singular verb?
Always singular, unless we have some reason to know that there's the subject before. Like the subject has been spoken of at some point.
But if that's the case, you would use a plural verb?
If we've already, yeah. But then you wouldn't need to use, you wouldn't need the subject because the pluralization of the verb would have the subject within it. أكلوا, when you say أكلوا, right? Or قرأوا, أكلوا, let's say because it's easier to write. أكلوا, this guy is the, remember in the pronouns we did last time? So in the pronouns we did last time, I told you, this is the subject now. So you wouldn't need الطلاب. You would say قرأوا الكتب. You wouldn't say قرأوا الطلاب الكتب. That would become that would be useless because now you have the subject and you're repeating it again. I'll talk about passivity for a moment now. No more examples. If you can think of an example from the Quran, please give it to me later on as I'm going along. But I'm going to give you, I'm talking about passivity. So المبني للمجهول. It's called in Arabic المبني للمجهول. Passive verb. So الفعل المبني للمجهول, the passive verb, we're going to talk about a past tense passive verb and then a present tense passive verb, just so that you get, because there's no point of studying نائب الفاعل or المفعول الذي لم يسمى فاعله or the object in a passive verb based sentence if you don't understand how to make a sentence passive. You have to understand what a passive sentence is, or this is completely useless information to you. So you have to understand how to make a verb-based sentence, a passive verb-based sentence. So let's talk about the past tense. And then we have the present tense. So past tense, we're going to take the standard verb. What's the standard verb? فعل. You always use فعل as a standard verb when you're studying verbs. So we say فعل. When you turn it into passive, so this is active, you're going to turn it into passive. It becomes فُعِلَ. Right? It'll always be like that. So take any verb you want that is in passive, in the past tense. Hit me with some verbs, anything. ذُهِبَ. What else? أُكِلَ. Give me. Yeah, so I was hoping you guys would wait for a minute before you guys gave me something that had but they're good. So I'll come to that in a second, because there's not an exception to the verb, but there is a little twist when you have a vowel in the middle of the verb or a vowel at the end of the verb. It becomes, you have to kind of make a small adjustment, which is an example of the word qala. But it works for everything, for any verb you want. It's the same thing. It sounds like fa'ala or fa'ila, like it's a fatha at the beginning, fatha at the end, and then you just put a dhamma at the first letter, a kasra at the second letter, and a fatha at the third letter. And that's how you change them all in the past tense, right? Now what happens if we have vowels in the middle? So if we have vowels in the middle, like the word qala, how would you turn, to do the same thing here, to do the same thing here, how would you do it? Follow the same rule for qala. What would you do? The same thing. Fa'ala, you want to turn to fu'ila. How would you do for qala? How do you turn it into? Yeah, so you see, if you want to put the qaf, a dhamma on the qaf, right? You want to do the same, you want to put a dhamma on the qaf. So the qaf becomes qu, and the lam has a fatha. But then what you do here for the alif? You give it a kasra. How do you give it a kasra? You say, you turn it to quwila. No one says quwila. That sounds dumb. Arab people would laugh at you. So they're like, okay, since this is a kasra, this is more important, so we'll just get rid of this. We'll move this kasra over here, and we'll turn the waw into a ya, because they're all interchangeable. All vowels in Arabic, a, u, e, are interchangeable. You can go from one to the other, no problem at all, right? So it turns into qila. Turns into qila. And there's our qira'at where you say, there's a qira'at where you say like this. You say qila, qila. You make your lips sound as if you're going to give a dhamma, but you don't. So we say qila. When I read in Hafs and Asim and Qalun, you say qila. Other qira'at say qila, qila. Well, why are you doing that? Because it's supposed to be a dhamma here. This was something the Arabs changed. So that's an interesting kind of thing to know. What else? What other examples do you have of a verb that has a vowel in the middle? Qama. So what would you say? Qima. What else? Ja'a. That's a bit more difficult, because that doesn't have in order for you to make it passive, what do you need in the sentence? What happens if the verb doesn't have an object? So die, mata fulan. Someone, where's the object in the sentence? Can you come with an object? Can you produce an object? You can't have, some verbs can't carry objects in a sentence. So making them passive is useless. Why would you? There's no object. You're going to send it with. It doesn't mean anything, right? So you always need an object, or you need it to be able to potentially carry some form of an object. So ja'a, what would you say? It's in the Quran. Yeah, وَجِيءَ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمَ. صح? So ji'a. What else do we have? Nama. But nama, does it have an object? Right? So it's useless to do it. You can still do it, like it's doable. You can say nima, but it's literally, how would you build a sentence like that? Yeah, and it would be very, very difficult. You have to go through a lot of different, you have to mess up things, because it doesn't carry an object to begin with. Another exception, what happens if you have the vowel at the end of the verb? So think of ata. Let's say bana, just because it has a clear object. So bana, bana Muhammad al-masjid, right? So now when I take out the subject, you want to say the masjid was built. So what would you say? What would you do here? Same thing here. Fa'ala turn to fu'ila. How would you turn it into do it? What would you do? Bunya. But how did you make it that quick? Where do you get the ya from? Shu'ala kayfak, you're just going to come up with letters. But you say you give the dhamma to the ba, the kasra to the noon. This is all easy. How do you give a fatha on the alif? And there's a kasra before it. How does that work? Can you say an alif if there's a kasra before it? It's impossible. That is like literally, vocally impossible for you to do. So you would turn, because the kasra is before it, you turn it into a ya, and then you give it a fatha. It becomes buniyya, because they're interchangeable. Buniyya. All right. So another example, da'a. Du'iyya. دعية. ذكر.
How come du'ya sometimes has a waw in it? Du'ya, like, no?
Sorry?
Du'ya, like, there's no waw in it? Or sometimes, I don't know. Never mind.
No. دعا دعية. ذكر ذكر. All right. Nada is maybe what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Probably what you're talking about is something that's similar to nada, which is but that's a four-letter based verb. So nada. So fa'ala, that would here translate into fa'ala. It would turn into fu'ila.
Does fa'ala exist?
Yeah. Nada.
Nada.
No, nada, he called someone.
But, like, if you say fa'ala to be fa'ala, can nada be nada?
No, fa'ala, these are just, so this is the morphology you were asking about earlier. So some verbs have three letters only, fa'ala, and some of them are like this, fa'ala. And that's how they're built, meaning they have four letters in them. They're not three letters.
Fa'ala is not an actual word.
Fa'ala? Yeah, it is. Yeah. Fa'ala is an actual verb. It has a meaning.
It means fa'ala or?
No, it means that two people are doing an action at the same time. Or they're interacting. So fa'ala, you did something. Fa'ala, meaning they interacted. Or they fused in some form. So nada, you say nudiya. All right, good. So that's for the past tense, and we covered whether we have a vowel in the middle or a vowel at the end. It's a bit tricky. So what would you say? كيف عملها? What would you do? وهبة. Very simple. Very simple. It's very simple, right? So you just need to know when you say so وهب الأب ابنه. The father gave the son something, whatever. So you want to take out, you want to turn to passive, you take out the subject. So you remove ab, it comes wuhiba al-ibnu. So now the object who was the son, now he's bumped up, he becomes marfu', he becomes the na'ib al-fa'il al-maf'ul alladhi lam yusamma fa'iluhu. He's the object in a passive verse-based sentence, and they are marfu'. I have it up there. He's marfu'. What we're studying words that are marfu', nouns that are marfu'. Please don't forget that. That's the whole point of this study. If you learn all this and you forget, okay, what am I supposed to, they're marfu'. What are the markers of rafa' for nouns? It's either a dhamma, an waw, or an alif, depending on the sentence. All right. I'm going to give let me just do the present tense. I'll give some examples that are a bit more complex. Present tense. So the same standard yaf'alu. Yaf'alu. How would you make it pacify it? Make it passive? Yuf'alu. Yuf'alu. Okay, so that's how we do it. So if it's taf'alu, tuf'alu. Naf'alu, nuf'alu. وهكذا. So regardless of what's at the beginning here for the present tense verb. So regardless of at the beginning, you just turn it into that. You just keep on flipping it. You just give a dhamma, sukoon, fatha, dhamma. So let's give examples of words. I don't think it's used ever, but this is just for the purpose of ishtiqaq, of deriving. So it doesn't have to have a meaning. It's just so that you understand how to derive it. That's all. So let's say. Think of I don't want to use the same words every time. Don't give me a vowel at the end immediately. Give me regular stuff until we come to the vowels. So yal'ab. How would you convert it into a passive verb? What would you say? Yul'ab, right? So yul'ab. Yul'ab. See? Yaf'al, yuf'al. If you look, what's the difference? Sukoon, fatha, dhamma, sukoon, fatha. We're just changing the first letter, right? Just the first letter is being given fatha. But sometimes this one here will have a kasra. Then we turn it into a fatha. Sometimes, so we'll give it yadribu. See, yadrib. Or tadrib, udrib.
Is there a rule of when it's a fatha or it's a kasra?
No, these are just things you have to memorize, yeah. Tadrib turns into tudrab. Tudrab. And these are examples. So when you have a passive verb like this, then you're going to have a na'ib fa'il or maf'ul الذي لم يسمى فاعله, an object in a passive verb-based sentence, and it's going to be marfu'. We're going to bump it up from being an object that was once a secondary word that had a fatha on it or was mansoob. Now we're going to bump it up and make it okay. What happens now? Let's give examples of vowels. Yep, so yamdi for a good example. So follow the rule, very simply, don't complicate things. Yamdi. Yamdi. So you want to put a dhamma on the first letter. Yum. Sukoon on the second one. And then fatha on the third one. Yumda. You can't put, that's not yumdai, you can't say that, you say yumda. Again, they're interchangeable. Vowels, it goes from a ya to alif immediately, no problem. Just change it to whatever the mini vowel, the haraka is before it. Give me more examples, think of something.
Yanu, like nawa, like
Yanwi.
Yanwi?
Yeah, so you say yanwi. Or let's say, yeah, yanwi, you would say, yeah, yunwa. That's fine. No, that's the whole point of this. Why I'm teaching people PhDs in Arabic. We're trying to learn. It's simple stuff. No, it's all good. Yaqum, or naqum, or taqum. So how would you change taqum? What would you do? Yeah. So very simple. You would say tu, and then fatha tuqam. Tuqam. We say, well, the second letter is supposed to have a sukoon on it, right? Well, you can't. There's a vowel after it. The vowel always has sukoon. You can't have two letters with sukoon. So you move this one, this haraka, to the one before it. So you move that mini vowel to the letter before it. It becomes tuqam. Right? Okay. These are issues of derivatives. This is sarf. We're talking about sarf. This is sarf. It's not important that you know all about it. I just want you to be able to mildly have the ability to recognize a passive verb when you see one, so that you know that what you're going to find after it is not a subject. It's going to be an object in a passive verb-based sentence. It's going to be a substitute, a na'ib al-fa'il, substitute for the subject. It's going to be marfu' as well. Whenever you see a verb-based sentence, look for a subject or something that is substituting the subject to be marfu'. Always look for it. You're going to find it 100%. Okay. So that's the passive verb. This is very important that you understand. I'm going to give some examples to shake things up a bit, so we can focus on rafa', on the markers of rafa' for a while. So let's say hazama al-muslimun al-mushrikeen. So the Muslims defeated the pagans. All right, this is a common sentence to say. So you want to conceptually remove the subject, right? We want to take out the subject. The one who did it are the Muslims. You remove them. So now we have to change this from an active verb to a passive verb, a direct verb to a passive verb. Huzima, very good, huzima. Huzima. Now, it's a verb-based sentence. You need a subject, but because it's a passive verb, you're not going to find a subject. You're going to find an object in a passive verb-based sentence that's going to be marfu', or you're going to find the na'ib al-fa'il, a substitute for the fa'il. Who's the object in this sentence? The mushrikeen, right? So we're going to turn them into, they're going to become the na'ib al-fa'il, they're going to become the object in a verb-based sentence, they're going to become marfu', they're going to become the substitute of the fa'il. So what would you say here? Huzima? Yes, you see, we have a change now. It's al-mushrikoon. It's marfu', correct? The marker of rafa' in this word is the waw, because it's a sound masculine plural. So huzima al-mushrikoon. It's not al-mushrikeen anymore. Because it was mansoob here, it's marfu' here. It was bumped up a bit. Now we're focusing on the fact that they lost, not the fact that Muslims won. Okay. Akrama So أكرم محمد أباه. So Muhammad treated his father with dignity, right? So I want to remove conceptually the subject from the sentence. I want to remove him from the sentence. I want to make the active verb, it's a verb-based sentence, I want to make the active verb a passive verb. So how would I, so I'm remove him, how am I going to turn him into a passive verb? Ukrima, right? So يفعل يفعل, أكرم أكرم, or فعل فعل, أكرم أكرم. Again, I didn't give you all the derivatives for these things, I gave you a few. So أكرم. Now, the object becomes the na'ib al-fa'al. It becomes the substitute of the subject, or an object in a passive verb-based sentence is going to be marfu'a now. He's going to be bumped up. So what would you say? Ukrima? Ool, yalla. Try, even if you're wrong. Ool. Abuhu. So ukrima. Abuhu. His father was treated well. We don't talk about who did it, we're just saying that he's treated well. Now, because it's one of the 5 exceptional nouns, the marker of rafa' is the waw, so right there. It's not abahu anymore, it's abuhu. Are we clear on how these things are working? Alright, it's okay. Even if you're not, inshallah, with time, you'll make sense of them. علم المدرس, teacher taught, الطالبين. So the teacher taught the 2 students. طيب يلا, break it down for me. What would you do? So you want to move, I want to remove the subject. I want to turn the active verb into a passive verb, and then this guy's, the object is going to become na'ib al-fa'al, or an object in a passive verb-based sentence. So it's going to be marfu'a. So what would you say? Very good. Very good. Ullima. So now it's a passive verb-based, it's a passive verb, so it's a passive verb-based sentence. So we're going to look, we're not going to find a subject, we're going to find a substitute of the subject. A subject substitute. And it's going to be marfu'a, it's going to be the object in the so الطالب, 2 sentence, الطالبان. Why? Because the alif is the mark of rafa in the dual form, right? The alif is the mark of rafa in the dual form. Is that relatively clear? Okay, give me some examples. Hit me with a few examples just before, we have like 3-4 minutes. Give me some examples that you think would, or if there's any questions you can ask. Yeah, so think. Can you think of? So qila doesn't have a direct object. It doesn't have a na'ib fa'il, right? It's important. You can deal with the objects, but in a different way, not in a direct way. It's in an indirect way when you say the word said or qala. All right. So let me summarize what we talked about so far, just so that we have some clarity, inshallah, on the issue. In a verb-based sentence, the moment you see a verb, you look for a subject. It's going to be marfu'. Sometimes the subject will be a noun, sometimes it will be a pronoun. Sometimes the pronoun will be clear, it'll be written, it'll be said verbalized, sometimes it'll be estimated. We talked about that last time. If you come to a verb-based sentence and you find the verb to be in the passive form, so you come to a verb-based sentence, you find an active or direct, you look immediately for the subject. Okay? If you come and you find the verb is a passive verb, then what you look for is na'ib al-fa'il, or the subject substitute, or al-maf'ul alladhi yusamma fa'iluhu, or the object in a passive verb-based sentence. All right, so you can look for one of those 2 things. Now, in what way are these 2 guys equal? They're both marfu'a. The whole point of this study. The whole point of us going through it in the way that we're going through it is that they're both going to be marfu'. So you have to look at the verb and see if the verb is it active, direct, and then you look for the subject. If it is not, if it's a passive verb, then you look for the na'ib al-fa'il or the object of verb-based sentence. Sometimes you may not find it. Yeah, sometimes you may not find it, but the way I like to teach this is that you always find it and just look for it, and that helps you kind of focus the way you look. But sometimes you may not find it in a passive verb, in a passive verb-based sentence. You may not find it in certain words, but for the general rule, just keep in your mind that you'll find it. Yes.
Can you say قال الولد ذهبت and then قيل
ذهبت. So, but then is the sentence of ذهبت is the na'ib al-fa'il, not the word. That's way more complex. I don't want to enter that realm yet. But yeah, that would be acceptable. All right. Now, what's important is you recognize. So this is simple. The subject is just being substituted by a different word, by the object. That's all that's happening here. So what really is the trick to this whole thing is recognizing a passive verb. I mean, the trick to all this is that can you recognize a passive verb? And if you say yes, I can, so make sure that you know the basic rules of recognizing a passive verb. If the verb looks like, so the verb is fa'ala. In the passive tense, you will find it to be fu'ila. If it's yaf'al, you will find it to be yuf'al. And there are other ways, but this is what you'll generally see. You'll see a verb that looks a bit different. It has if you look at what brings it together, what is the main, what is the common denominator in passive verbs? What's the common denominator for both passive verbs, whether past tense or present tense? Yeah, the first letter is going to have a dhamma. The biggest clue you'll get is that the first letter of that verb, whether it's a past tense verb, present tense verb, 3-letter verb, or 4-letter verb, or 5-letter verb, is that the first one will have a dhamma on it. And that's like the biggest clue for you to know this is a passive verb. And then you don't look for the subject anymore. You look for the object that is going to substitute the subject. You're going to look for the object that is going to substitute the subject, but it's going to be marfu' as well. All right, so we'll end with that, inshallah. We'll continue the second. We'll continue with this bab, inshallah, next time. Subhanallah, bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.